What if the greatest war that you'll ever fight isn't out in the world somewhere, but it's inside of you? A war not against politics, pandemics, or people, but against your own apathy, your own distraction and fear. What if the real battlefield is in your mind and the real victory is measured not in comfort or convenience at the end of the day, but in courage and clarity? We live in an age obsessed with happiness, yet allergic to discipline, where good vibes only has become the modern sedative for a soul that was designed to step into greatness. We've confused fleeting pleasure with real purpose, and we've silenced the whisper of our inner daimon, that fierce, unrelenting voice that calls us to rise, to grow, and to become. In this Uncorked conversation, we're imbibing the ancient wisdom of eudaimonology and Stoic philosophy, not as intellectual curiosities, but as survive and then thrive tools for a world that's forgotten how to flourish. Because true human flourishing isn't about feeling good, it's about becoming good. And if you dare to listen closely, you might just hear that inner voice, your inner daimon, reminding you you were never meant to just exist, you were meant to flourish and to exceed. Hey, my friends, welcome back to the Uncommodified podcast. I'm Tim Windsor, and today my guest on the show is Suzanne Taylor-King. Suzanne, welcome to the show.
Well, I loved your opening salvo. Fabulous. Absolutely obsessed with you and how you describe things.
Oh my gosh. Well, listen, this is going to be a lot of fun. For those of you who follow my world and Suzanne's world, I had the privilege of being on Suzanne's podcast a while ago, and we've connected several times since.
Mhm.
She has an amazing world we're going to braille into tonight and sort of figure this out, which is kind of exciting for me. Now, I'm doing something a little different, and I never told Suzanne I was going to do this. So, she's going to have to go on the fly, but she's pretty good at that. I'm not going to introduce Suzanne tonight. I'll tell you about my experience with Suzanne throughout the show. But Suzanne, if you had to introduce yourself to somebody, because you are a very amazingly complex woman, how
Mm.
would you introduce yourself to somebody you were just meeting for the first time?
I would say I guide entrepreneurs to the simplistic way of growing their business through technology and trusted relationships.
Well articulated. What else needs to be said? I love it. Now, of course, we should celebrate that amazingly synthesized bio with a drink. And of
Oh,
course, I
okay.
always like to have a drink. So, what
Yeah.
are you drinking?
Tonight is a Hendrix gin and tonic.
Oh, you know what? Hendrick's my favorite gin, actually. Okay.
Really? Well,
Yeah,
cheers.
I love Hendrick's gin. And now I'm having a 10-year-old Tawny Port.
Mm,
I just like to say the word because it makes me feel sophisticated. So I want to have a
it
little
sounds
or
sophisticated.
do you like port?
I do not.
Oh, port is a great drink. Cheers to you, my friend.
Here. Cheers.
Mm. I'll tell you a story later about martinis made with Hendrick's gin and the
Okay.
airport, Toronto, with a famous celebrity one time. I'll tell you that story.
Okay.
That's an interesting story, but we won't go there right now. Okay, so here's what I want to tuck into. So you and I were chatting and saying, okay, what are we going to talk about? And you come
Mhm.
on, and I don't even know, by the way, if I'm saying the word right, because I love it when somebody says, well, let's talk about this. And I got to go Google it because I'm like, what the hell is that? So I
Yeah.
think based on my best Googling that
Mhm.
it's eudaimonology. Am I close?
Very close. I say it eudaimonology. I emphasize the you
You.
because it's really all about that inner wise voice within yourself.
Yeah.
And as I discovered more about your daimon and eudaimonology, I really kind of leaned back on my positive psychology education and thought, well, there's so many similarities here between Stoic philosophy and positive psychology and human flourishing. And being a business coach, it seems like a strange word to use to describe yourself. But I really noticed throughout my entrepreneurial journey, which is 40 years, we're not going to talk about that. But I will say that each different business that I've owned or started or helped someone start, it was always about who I was being as a person, not only for myself, but for those people that I was guiding, coaching, consulting with. And I thought this has to be part of that next evolution of my brand to really stand in that. And I remember my branding person, my person that was helping me design my website, 5 or 6 years ago. I just launched a new one. But they all said, no, you can't call yourself that. Nobody knows what it is. And that made me smile and say, yes, I'm totally doing that. And that's actually what attracted me to you live on a coaching call with my group that I coach. I was searching LinkedIn and I was like, this is how I pick people to connect with. And I found your profile. I got to go back and find the recording because it's right there, screen share and everything. And I said, this guy, see how he calls himself a provocateur? Nobody's brave enough to do that. And then I clicked to your website and I said, guys, do you see how this guy and I are going to get along, have an incredible conversation? And I'm reaching out to him right now in front of all of you to show you how easy this is.
Well, first of all, I love that, and I love that you did that because it
Yeah.
has led to a series of really wonderful connections. Obviously,
Yeah.
you and I have connected a couple of times since, which has been amazing, and I've connected to some other people in your network. So I
Mm-hmm.
love how this sort of, you're a little bit of a web weaver, which I
Ooh,
love.
I like
You
that.
you you are really good at that, and you connect people, and you understand how this all works. And so I want to get into this idea of how does so when we think of human flourishing.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think that, or maybe I should rephrase the question. Do you think that humans have forgotten how to flourish?
I think there's different priorities now compared to, 20, 30 years ago
Uh,
because of social media and just looking at my son who's in high school compared to when I was in high school, um, I didn't have anyone to compare what I had or who I was to, except the most popular girl in my class. Um, so I think it's harder for people now to really stand in what they value for
mhm,
themselves without looking at other people. And I think that's one of the things that stood out to me with the idea of being a happy person, but maybe still a high performer and expecting more for yourself. So, can I still be happy and flourish where I'm at now if
yeah,
I want more, if I want to do more, be more, accomplish more? And that was really the question I was struggling with a couple years ago.
yeah,
And I think I have it figured out for myself. But I noticed that so many of the entrepreneurs I was working with are struggling with the same thing.
yeah. And that's a pretty evil journey when you think about it, because when you're
Hmm.
always questing for something that you feel you can't possess,
Yeah.
or you're questing for it out of a need because you need to make it happen so that it plugs in and fills something inside of you.
Hmm.
That's a fairly wicked journey when you
It
think
is.
about it, and it creates a subset of really, really bad behaviors, decisions, all the things that come with that, and
Yeah.
there is this classic struggle in the human psyche. I mean, I suppose it's sort of within this word that we're looking at. So we have this idea of this the inner diamond.
Hmm.
I'm more acquainted with the other part of this, probably the inner demon,
Yes.
daemon. I don't know what we call that.
The
But
demon.
there's
The
yeah, the
demon.
demon.
Yeah.
I'm man, oh man, I got that classic struggle going on in me all the time.
Yeah. 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 They're right here. Like,
Yeah, they're right.
oh,
Exactly. I got one little here, and in fact, I feel like I got many on the one side of the evil creature.
yeah.
I don't know what happens here, but there's
Yeah.
a classic struggle that's happening, and you're wrestling this in your own personal life,
Hmm.
trying to figure that out. You're helping entrepreneurs sort of wrestle that whole struggle so they can find themselves. Why is that so critical, and why is being honest about this struggle maybe part of the important part of the journey?
Mm. Well, I think that's a twofold question. I think it's important because if we're going to serve others
Hmm.
and we're going to get paid for that as entrepreneurs, that's who I help is entrepreneurs, founders. But if we're gonna do that, I think in order to be that person for others, we have to be the best version of ourselves. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I am willing to hold up the mirror and look at where I'm not doing a good job and say, I suck at that.
Mm,
Let me hire somebody to help me with that because uh, full transparency, I'm not a details oriented person. I'm a big picture vision thinker. So I struggled for years beating myself up over not getting details done.
mm,
Well, when I finally admitted to myself that, hey, you're just not a details oriented person, you don't like the details,
mm,
you don't want to do the details. All of a sudden, freedom opened up for me. But I fought that for so long.
mm,
And I remember the first time I helped someone else see what they were good at, what they were not good at, and all of a sudden freedom opened up for them as soon as they admitted the things they don't like to do and the things that they're not good at.
mm,
Um, and I like the analogy of if if you do a really bad job at cleaning your house or you just don't ever do it, your choices are get good at doing it or hire a cleaning lady. And if you're not willing to pay the couple $100 for the cleaning lady, you 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 don't value someone else doing it for you. So you learn to do it yourself
mm.
and you learn to do a good job at it.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
a
think
choice.
entrepreneurship is very, very similar to that.
Yeah. It is, yeah. You know what, by the way, I think we should have another drink because
Oh,
this is
sure.
what I found out
Yeah.
recently in my shows. We get talking, and then I'm the only
Mhm.
one who gets to drink because I ask all the
Oh,
questions. That doesn't work very well.
okay.
Mm.
Evelyn would approve, by the way.
Evelyn, we're gonna talk about Evelyn in a
Yes.
second. Evelyn, I have a serious little bit of a crush on Evelyn, so I'll talk
Okay.
about that later,
Okay.
but that'll take us in a very different direction. But you know what
Okay.
is interesting to me? Because what you just said to me, what I'm hearing you say is that part of flourishing
Mhm.
is actually embracing your flaws. It's also
Yeah.
embracing your limitations.
Yeah.
That and maybe that's part of the challenge around the subject matter in North America, particularly maybe for us, is that so to flourish, it's I have to become comfortable with who I am and who I'm not. I
Mhm.
have to be able to say I do this well and I can suck at that. That's not I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
But embracing that is a really difficult journey, particularly in that entrepreneurial world
Mhm.
and, and because part of it is you gotta look all buttoned up. You gotta have it all buttoned up. You gotta
Yeah.
pretend you got it all figured out,
Yeah.
so that you can go out and make your pitch and people can believe all you can believe your bullshit and so can everybody else. So part of flourishing is embracing that part of us that is imperfect in nature, which is so,
Yeah.
so difficult.
Yes, and I think that's where imposter syndrome comes from.
Mhm.
And everybody says just be authentic, just be authentic. Well, if you're going out into the world, whether you're networking or posting on social media or interacting, and you're faking who you are,
Yeah.
um, I think people can tell and they can feel it. And maybe you're pitching your services, or maybe you're trying to get clients. And I always emphasize the get. I don't think you get clients. I think you create them, and that
Mhm.
we could go down that route too if you want. But I really feel as though imposter syndrome comes when you're not really admitting who you are and being okay with it. And part of that for me was really looking at my own story and where I came from in this entrepreneurial journey, the mistakes that I
Mm,
made. And I really remember the day that I realized that I had made more mistakes
mm,
in the 6 different companies I've started over the years, and those mistakes were actually what made me a better coach, consultant, mentor. So take all the success that I've had. with different things.
Yeah.
It was if it's the mistakes and the failures that actually make me good at what I do,
Yeah.
I have to be okay with them. I have to own them. I have to tell the stories. And some of my most popular content is when I say, I used to do this and it was a total nightmare. And this is how I fixed it.
Yeah.
And it took a lot to get to the point where I was okay with letting people, kind of see behind that
Mhm.
facade of successful. But that's actually what made me more successful when I did that.
Yeah, it is amazing how attractive humanity
Mm,
and
mhm.
understanding that we're flawed individuals who have lots of
Yeah,
greatness. But there's
yeah.
something freeing in that. And to your point about the mistakes we make, I think it might have been Benjamin Franklin who said, "If it hurts, it instructs," which I really love that quote because I think that's the wonder of being hurt and
Mhm.
failing and falling is there is instruction, there is learning that comes, lessons that come in that failing that can
Yeah,
never come in the success that we have. And that to me is really an awesome part of the human journey too.
yeah,
And you're bringing all this into the world where you're helping people sort of catalyze their futures and try to figure out how to find that path. But you're suggesting that the path to find that preferred future is through understanding and being honest about who we are and who we aren't today, and then mapping our way forward ultimately.
yeah, because we can't really connect the dots going forward, right? So we have to be willing to look at the past
Hmm.
and connect those dots.
Mm.
And I remember along my entrepreneurial journey as a coach, um, I took so many certifications, so many. It's obscene the amount of classes, certifications, and I don't even mention half of them because they're not important, but why they are important is because they led to the next one and the next one and the next. And I can look back now and say that one of those things I studied opened the door for the next one. And oh my gosh, it totally makes sense now. But
Mm.
when it was happening, I had no idea what I was doing. Um, I was just kind of following breadcrumbs
Yeah.
and learning what excited me or made me happy in the moment.
Yeah, and I mean that ability to wander and
Mm,
to and to and to be okay in that wandering journey is
yeah,
extremely difficult for most people. I mean, I think about my own experience and the people that I work with, and you know, they definitely lock down their world. And as much as they believe they want to innovate and do wondrous things, many of them have lost the ability to be perplexed and
yeah,
to wonder.
yeah.
And I think there is a power in perplexion.
Mm,
I really believe so often in my own life, and I think in the people that I work with, it's not until somebody sits back in their chair and sort of rubs their chin
yeah,
in a perplexed moment that's that until that happens, nothing really wonderfully new can be born. And but being in a place of feeling perplexed assaults everything about who we believe we have to be in the room.
mhm,
Because what we have to be in the room, we think for many people, is the person who's got it all buttoned up and figured out. So being perplexed, musing, not knowing is soul crushing for most people. But in fact, I would say that based on the philosophies we're talking about, it's actually soul releasing if we really
I think
understood it.
so. I think so. I think it's one of my favorite times. Um, I remember learning my 5 top character strengths when I was studying positive psychology. This is well before I even knew what Stoic philosophy was. And I learned these 5 top traits of mine, and number 1 was love of learning. And I
Huh,
was like, "Oh, of course it is. Of course." And then humor, compassion, and the next 2 kinda change over the years, but there was a freedom in the learning about myself.
huh,
And that became a little bit of an addiction for a while, assessments and self-study and, from human design and numerology, life path numbers, Chinese astrology, um, and every corporate assessment that there is. And then now with AI, taking all of those assessments and putting them into one giant report
huh,
about myself and being able to read it objectively and being fascinated with the wonder that is the unique genetic makeup of me.
huh. You know what? I mean, first of all, I love that. I mean, I think that so many people, their ability to be fascinated about themselves,
Mm,
their ability to live with a sense of wonder and awe about who they are as humans, it
yeah.
so very much fights in the face of all the things that I think that maybe we were
Yes.
raised to believe, or,
Yes.
sort of this false sense of humility or whatever that happens with us.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a balance with all this stuff, but I do think that that's really hard for us to settle in to that feeling of wonder and awe about who we are as humans. And I
Mhm.
do think that that gets in the way. So Stoic philosophy, tell me how this all sort of connects in here. And what is it about Stoic
Mm.
philosophy that sort of that really has grabbed a hold of you? And how do you see it helpful to you and maybe even some of the people you work with?
Well, I was in another certification, a life coaching certification. And then it was called Optimize with Brian Johnson. Now it's called Heroic. And I was part of his first class of coaches. I think he's had over 25 classes of coaches now. And he mentioned often the classic works of Epictetus and Seneca, and I was like, what's the deal with this?" Like, I was just curious,
Uh-huh.
and down a rabbit hole I went of different book summaries, and, that led to finding Ryan Holiday, who, has written some incredible works, and I sat and read the book, The Obstacle is the Way,
Huh.
and I just it was like almost like an out of body experience because all of those mistakes was actually the path to doing what I was meant to do with my life, and I I really leaned into reading a passage in, some Stoic philosophy book every day and looking at the lessons from the past and how they align with the lessons of today. And so many of the lessons of Stoic philosophy line up with the lessons of positive psychology. And that's actually where positive psychology came from originally, was this idea of eudaimonia. And eudaimonia translated is human flourishing. That's the mission of positive psychology. I started seeing all these connections with the things I was studying. So it really just made sense for me to lean into it.
Uh, so, I mean, I love the journey that you've been on, and obviously, you're on your own personal journey. You've got, you've developed a really great business model around this that you engage with
Mhm.
people. But more than a business model, it's really just who you are, which is partly what I
Yeah.
love about that. Because
Yes.
when we gotta reinvent ourselves for our business, that doesn't usually
No,
work. We
no.
we can
Tried
f-
that.
we can fake it
Tried
so
that.
long.
Didn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work, and and
Yeah.
and that's the challenge of settling in. I think again, just
Mhm.
settling in to your own skin and
Yeah.
really being able to say, "This is who I am, and I'm good with
Yeah.
it." in
Yeah.
again all of my wonder and all of my flaws, and my inner diamond and my inner demon, and trying to balance those things, or understanding that this is the classic tension we all live in.
Yeah.
So I love it. Now let's bring Evelyn into this conversation
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
We're going to go everywhere. You recently have. So did you create Evelyn, or did Evelyn create you?
I definitely created her. I
Okay.
I think that I was looking for a writing outlet, and one of my AI mentors said to me, "How about creating a persona?" And I was
Yep.
like, "Ooh,
Ooh.
that sounds like fun."
Okay.
And I've always had a secret desire to be on Saturday Night Live, and embrace my, comedy skills and improv.
Yeah.
So I thought, "Hmm, how could I report on AI news and use what I'm learning and staying up on," which, believe me, is very difficult to stay even remotely caught up with
Yeah.
AI. I recently read that AI is moving at a pace that's like, uh, every 10 days it advances a year's worth of
Mm.
learning. I'm like, okay. So I was going to attempt to do a newsletter for the person who really didn't know a whole lot about AI.
Mhm.
And when I thought about the persona to write the newsletter, the easy path would have been an AI news reporter. And I thought, no, I want this to be funny, and I want it to be fun, and I want it, to have a cocktail recipe in every issue. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird and different, and I love it. So I said, who is this person? Well, she's me at my bravest.
Oh.
She's part my mom, she's part 50s housewife, and she writes slightly tipsy, so she doesn't care what she says, which makes her even funnier.
Oh. Okay, just and
Which
but
I
just
don't write slightly tipsy, just
well,
so
you should, just so you know, you should try it, because I've tried.
we good.
I call it Scotch enabled. That's what I
Oh, I like
so
that.
I oftentimes
Mhm.
when I'm training, I'm saying this idea may have been Scotch enabled.
Okay.
That's what I call it, Scotch enabled. So first of all, when I first saw the Evelyn come
Uh-huh.
out on my feed in LinkedIn, I was like, oh my gosh! First of all, this is just fucking clever.
Thank you.
It was clever, but also is so wonderfully practical,
Yeah.
provocative, but it's the persona Evelyn's persona is interesting, because there's something about that sort of the cat glass lady
Uh-huh.
that's like makes you just want to just step in and listen.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I love that idea of I love the story there, but I love the persona, because it lets people experience something, to your point, which is, and this is what I guess I love about the creativity of the idea. You're talking about the newest thing around,
Mhm.
but you're actually using an image which is based in nostalgia.
Yeah.
It is a powerful sort of elixir, where you're mixing this sort of 1950s-ish, let's say, as you
Mhm.
said, sort of this female persona from the 50s, and then you're mixing it with this message of the new millennium.
Yeah.
And it is a really interesting interplay, and even the tones, the subtle tones that you're using in the coloring of the graphic and everything, it just breeds nostalgia. And I think from an emotional perspective, it's interesting, because you're grounding the newest, most scariest thing for many people
Mhm.
in nostalgia, which usually is comforting, and it's grounding and centering for us. So
You
now
figured
I
it
don't
out.
know if you meant all this, but
I
that's
did.
how I
I
experience
did.
it. So
I
amazing.
I I wanted people to recognize her. to see something in themselves. She made a reference. She comes out every Monday, and she made a reference today of a 2000-ish boy band, and it was a funny little joke. And I do those, you know, with the idea that it's gonna make people feel more comfortable about something that they're already feeling uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
And I know that's what it does for me. And full transparency, she is 100% written with AI. And what I love about that is that I'm I'm able to program, a custom GPT
Yeah.
with the personality, and then
Yeah.
the stories and the jokes, I I'm able to use my creativity
Yeah.
and say, write a newsletter about this and reference a 2000 boy band, tell a joke about this.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe make her slightly tipsier than normal, or reference smoking Pall Malls in this edition. And I just think it's bred a new life into my creativity with my writing,
Hmm.
but it's also given me a freedom to be a little ballsier, to be a little braver, to
Yeah.
be a little sassy when normally that's not considered professional.
Yeah. No, it is so brilliant. And I hate to make this admission on my show because a few people might listen, but I I I want to dress up like Evelyn, I think. I
Mm.
want to channel my inner Evelyn, because
Well,
she is
we can
everything.
easily create a persona for
Yeah,
you.
well, I'm just gonna step into Evelyn's persona.
Okay.
It's just so brilliant, and I
Thank you.
did wanna bring out, because I think, again, it's connected to me to the idea we're talking about. So
Mhm.
flourishing, being thinking of when I think of flourishing, I think of something that's just in full bloom, that's coming to life, that's when you get something that's flourishing and it's growing and it's
Yeah.
so beautiful to experience. You're experiencing life and replication, and often, if it's a plant, we're seeing the beauty of it. There's an intoxicating smell to it. There's some flourishing is a powerful word.
Mhm.
What I love about what you're doing with that is that you are flourishing. You're coming into your own again and again and again in your journey.
Yeah.
And you're encouraging people to do the same, and then you're also using technology, and you're using, the latest sort of ways to do this,
Mhm.
and I love the way this all plays together, and it's a part
Thank
of your
you.
brilliance, it's part of your magic, and you are, if you were a male, you'd be a warlock. I don't wanna call you a witch, so I'm not gonna
You
call you a
can.
witch.
I've been called worse.
You've got magical powers.
Well, I think thank you so much. Like, I'm honored for you to say that. And I think what this has all shown me is that being myself
Yeah.
is actually the way. And if you try to hide, that personality, that sassiness, that bravery, because it makes others feel uncomfortable or it feels scary, I can't fully express myself if I have to edit my language, my my just whole entire being. And I thought, if I get to be myself here, and if I'm going to ask other people to
Mhm.
put their stories and their bravery and to charge more, be more, do more, if I'm going to ask people to do that, I
Mhm.
have to be willing to do it myself, period.
Yeah.
Like, end of story.
Yeah.
And Evelyn really, I hesitated for 2 hot seconds on the first edition. And I thought, are people gonna like, nope, don't care. I love her. And it literally was a 2-second decision. I started to say, "Are people gonna like this? Are they gonna subscribe? Are they gonna" Nope, I love her. I think she's funny. I would wanna hang out with her. I would wanna have drinks with her, and I'm just going to do it. And I think that moment, there was a freedom that happened within me.
Hmm.
We're 20 Today was 23rd edition of her, and I'm doing it every week, and I look forward to it, and I think it's given me permission to show that side of myself in a whole new way.
Yeah, it's so brilliant, and again, if you're listening in, you're listening. I always say you're listening for a reason, and I'm not really sure. You'll have to figure out why. What I love just about again this conversation. So as you know, listeners, we don't rehearse these conversations. We say we're going to talk about this. We figure it out. I didn't even tell Suzanne that I was gonna ask her about Evelyn. So this is a whole nother part of the conversation. And again, it's just so brilliant and it's so wonderful, and it does speak to the topic to me because you are coming into your own still,
Mhm,
you're
mhm,
finding yourself. As you mentioned, you've been at this a while, and
yeah,
yet you're still discovering those places of yourself that are easily hidden, that you want to express, but there's something in your psyche that says you can't or you shouldn't or you ought not to,
yeah,
whatever that thing is. But
yeah,
you're breaking free from that. And again, if you're listening in, I just challenge you to ask you, what part of your personality is some voice inside you, maybe that inner demon, saying,
mm,
hey, you ought not to, or you can't, or you shouldn't?
yeah,
Because maybe that's the very thing you got to ask yourself, but why not? Because that's what the world is looking for. It's looking for, I think it is looking for the uniqueness of who we are. We're all created so wonderfully unique. If we just fall into homogeneity and we all end up the same in the end, I think we lose the magic. We lose the wonder, whether it's in
yeah,
our businesses, whether it's in our communities, whether it's in our world. The quest towards homogeneity, what I often refer to as the homogeneous horde, is a
mhm,
problem because we get stuck in there. We quest and we desire. We were made in a unique expression. We're unique by nature, and yet we're giving it up all the time. And that is maybe the biggest shame, the biggest problem that all of us need to ask ourselves. Can we really let our true
mm,
selves out of the cage more
yeah.
often? For the positive benefit, of course, for ourselves and others, we probably should put a caveat on there just in case I get letters because I get letters every once in a while from people who think
Well,
that I
I would argue that as soon as I was willing to put something unique out there into the world
yeah
like that, I got approached by a major news outlet. We're still in negotiations for a small Evelyn column in another location, which is very exciting. Like, okay.
love it.
And then within 2 weeks of creating her, I got paid by 4 people to create personas for them, to help them lean into creating a persona for them to write from.
Wow.
And I remember that week of having those 4 calls. It doesn't take me long to be a detective and help somebody really figure out that persona,
Yeah.
and then creating a custom GPT to write in that persona. And I thought, that was the most fun I've had with technology and client and just the conversations to get to their unique persona. Tell me
Yeah.
about your parents. Tell me about your high school experience. Tell me about your first boss, and like really getting to that unique voice that they wanted to speak from. Like, the 2 of the personas were not funny at all. They were serious, professor-like, almost lecture-y type personas, and that works for those people. That would never work for me. So, that was really a part of eudaimonology to me, is being yourself to the point where you don't have to go fit in somewhere.
Yeah.
You create the space for others to fit in.
Oh, oh, that's good. Oh, you know
Yeah.
what I should say to everybody? Anything said on the show is copywritten to me. I should say that. That was really
Yeah.
good. That was
You
really
can have
good.
it.
That was
You can have it.
excellent.
You can
That
have it.
was really good. Oh, that's a really powerful idea about space.
Yeah.
Because when you think about when you create space, and it becomes almost like it can pull something in like a vacuum. It
Yeah.
tracks things into it.
Mhm.
And it's really that's a really interesting thing. And man, this is what a great conversation. And we could talk for days, I'm sure. So, but we would lose a few listeners along the way. What a great conversation. So let me ask you, if
Yeah.
by chance people wanted to find your world and learn more about Suzanne Taylor-King, STK, where's the best way for that place for them to find you and connect with you if they wanted to?
Well, the best place now is an incredible new website that just launched last week. It's still in the final little tweaking stages, but SuzanneTaylorKing.com. Evelyn's there to subscribe to my podcast, which you've been on
Yeah.
incredible guest on, and so many of the people that you've connected with from my world have been on that podcast. So everything's right on SuzanneTaylorKing.com. Of course, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all the places. And I'm thinking with Evelyn's article that dropped today, I did a really unique image of her imaginary success
Yeah.
on Instagram. And I think she needs her own Instagram.
Oh, you know what? Now you're getting crafty. That's
Yeah,
crafty. I
I know.
love it. Now,
Yeah.
I don't normally say this, but just to be clear for people, I don't usually tell people when. So it is November 10th. I don't normally give
Uh-huh.
a date, but I'm going to give a date. It is November 10th. It is now 7:15 p.m., far past my bedtime. So I am up chatting with Suzanne Taylor-King, and she just told you that something dropped today. That is November 10th.
Mhm.
This episode's probably going to air mid-December-ish, so we'll
Okay.
get it out mid-December-ish. And I don't typically talk about those dates, but it's good to give people some context. Suzanne, it's been absolutely delightful to collide with you in this space, and the fact that on a whim, sort of found my world and me is fascinating because on
Oh,
one
great.
level, people could assume that was happenstance.
Mm,
I don't believe in happenstance.
no.
I think that things happen for reason. I think that's there's it's I think it's reason stance. There's a reason why you and I have collided. I don't think we've fully figured it out yet, and I'm sure we will eventually. But I love the way that you look at the world. And so
Thank
I want
you
to give
so
you
much.
sort of the last word today. So if you can talk to my listeners and you could give them one provocation
Mm.
regarding how and why flourishing and becoming more of their true self is important to them, what would you want to communicate to them?
I think it's the most important work that you'll ever do, and if you want your message, your mission, your product, your offers, your journey in the corporate world to take you to life satisfaction, the single greatest thing you can do is go inward so that the outward journey makes more sense. And, maybe for some it's meditation, for others it's journaling. Um, for me, it was
Hmm.
learning more about the inner workings of me. And that brought a whole new level of confidence for me. That's how it worked for me. And I would just encourage anybody to really just open up the dialogue and have a conversation with yourself. Who do I need to be in order to do what I want in this life? Because you only get one,
You do. Very
as far as we
powerful.
know. as far as we know.
As far as we know, but, you
Yeah.
know what? Very powerful, I love it, and again, if you're listening for a reason. Do me a favor, DM me or send me an email at tim@uncommodified.com and let myself and then I can let Suzanne know how you're uncorking this idea in your
Mm,
life. What are you doing with it? What are you gonna do with it? That's the challenge. If you just listen and you do nothing with it, it's really, frankly, a bit of a waste of time, and you only have a finite amount of time. So use it wisely, apply what you've learned, challenge yourself, and find your best version of yourself today for the world around you. Thanks for listening. Have an
yeah.
excellent day. Cheers.